this week's Middle East and Africa Forum for Sustainability Leaders podcast, where we take a deeper dive into this massive push and acceleration towards sustainability that we're seeing across the region, trying to uncover some insights and intelligence to help those who are leading these sustainability initiatives along the journey and road ahead. We're lucky to be joined by our special guest speaker today, Manali Desai, who is the Chief Sustainability Officer of Africa, Middle East, and South Asia for PepsiCo. Thanks for joining the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
I just wanted to first kick off with a question that we tend to ask all of our sustainability leaders who are coming across all sectors and all industries. What was the need for a CSO position, and when was that first identified within PepsiCo? Of course, what was the process like in terms of instituting that role?
Well, fantastic question. And firstly, thank you for this opportunity to speak about PepsiCo's sustainability journey and for all the work that Gulf Intelligence is doing to bring about this entire community of CSOs together. So at PepsiCo, sustainability has always been at the heart of our operations. Starting from about 2010, we had launched Performance with Purpose goals, where we focused mostly on water and energy usage within our four walls and within our boundaries. However, as the external environmental challenges and the landscape started evolving, we as PepsiCo believe that operating in a way to take care of our planet and people is an imperative for the future of our business. So we articulated a vision and started PepsiCo Positive, about 2 years ago to strategically transform our business from end to end with sustainability at the heart. And how we grow and create value as a business is very centered within sustainability. So now we have set ambitious goals, 100% water replenishment by 2030, net zero by 2040, reduction of virgin plastic in a significant way by 2030. And then, because this transformation requires the right program, the right interventions across our value chain to bring the right partners and to ensure the right talent is driving these programs, we decided to invest in the sustainability organization. And that's how this whole Chief Sustainability Officer role came about. We now have executive sponsorship for the agenda, and that ensures very accelerated delivery against all our targets. So that's a little bit about how this role came about.
And I think you touched on a big point there. Having executive buy-in helps drive and accelerate everything throughout that strategy and initiative. Of course, PepsiCo is a massive multinational company, and Pep Positive is a great initiative starting from a high level. How do you, of course, being based in the region, take that strategy and tailor it to the region? What is the process in terms of that? And is it in terms of making it more bespoke for each area? Does that maximize impacts as opposed to having a wider overall blanket strategy?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. You know, strategy can only stay on paper and in people's computers if it's not executed the right way. And it only makes sense when we have to operationalize the strategy and tailor it to our region. And that's where my role and my team's role comes in. So at a global level, PepsiCo Positive would be a very blanket strategy. But when it comes to our region of Africa, Middle East, with all the emerging markets that are coming in, public policy, governments are in very different phases of evolution around sustainability policies. So then it becomes my team's role to understand market by market differences across all our pillars. So in PepsiCo Positive, we have 5 different pillars. We have positive agriculture, which deals a lot to do with our farmers, regenerative agricultural practices. We have positive value chain, in which we have water, so saving water, replenishing water. We have climate, which is understanding how to decarbonize our entire value chain, plastics, to reduce the dependence on virgin plastics, and then lastly, product. How do we make our products more healthy for our consumers? Across all of these pillars, each market is in a different level of maturity. So that's where our team comes in as subject matter experts. We work with each market to define what is our glide path. So broadly, these 20 to 30 goals seem extremely high and ambitious, but then we break it down and look at what is the glide path year over year by market and define strategies that are fit for purpose for that particular market, and then operationalize teams within those markets to actually go create that impact.
Sustainability, it's a massive challenge, and as you said, everyone's kind of at their own point of their journey, whether point A or all the way, more advanced towards point C. In terms of that operational aspect, what advice could you give other large organizations, other CSOs, in terms of the corporate governance structure of action and implementation, how to set up your teams and the process and strategy that went into that? We've had conversations before where some leaders keep their teams small to integrate culture across the board, and then some, of course, have wider, I would say, teams across every function. What would be your aspect and advice in that space?
There's several facets to this question, right? So let me just take it up in like 3 or 4 different buckets. So first of all, I would suggest that start with the end in mind. Always have a broader understanding and framework of where you want the company's strategic vision on sustainability to be and how those goals are interlinked with business. So you cannot grow in our part of the world without taking care of all the sustainability guardrails, if you may, right? So first of all, have a strategic vision. Secondly, ensure that the sustainability organization gets the right sponsorship right from the top, from the CEO. So for example, I, as a CSO, this role sits on the executive committee of the region. So ensure you get the right sponsorship and you have peer-to-peer dialogues with all the functional leaders and the business unit general managers or the people who actually make the decisions, and ensure the sustainability team gets a seat at the table for making these decisions. So that's the second point. Another important point is to have this team as a cross-functional team. You cannot drive this in silos. So for example, on my team, I don't only just have a direct team of 4 or 5 senior experts, we also have a collaborative and cross-functional team. Somebody from procurement takes up the sustainability role and reports dotted line into me. Somebody from government affairs also dotted line reports into me. And this role then becomes powerful because it has different linkages to many cross-functional teams, such as HR, even finance, and all of us work together towards that strategic vision that we have carved out for ourselves. So those are 2-3 pointers that I would suggest as other companies set up governance for sustainability.
And of course, as you mentioned, it requires collaboration, it requires engagement across functions. Sustainability at its core can be complex. There's scientific climate change. How do you ensure that you're speaking the right language across functions so that you ensure buy-in? We all operate in a space, but of course, even going to procurement, they might be at a different understanding of sustainability. What would you say in terms of that aspect?
So it starts with setting the right vision, as I said, but having the right science-based targets, right? So scientifically, once you have the right targets formed for your company, the second thing is ensuring a higher level of awareness and education across the organization. So that is fundamentally different because it is a complex subject, sometimes a little too technical, sometimes very broad. And hence, I think it's important for the team to invest time in themselves and across the organization and building the capability and step changing everybody's awareness towards sustainability. That's number one. And then, of course, being on trend, ensuring that the company and the people in our teams are understanding what are the trends, such as in carbon capture or in blue hydrogen. All of these buzzwords very quickly start becoming buzzwords if you don't understand the real technical depth behind those concepts. So it's important for the team to stay abreast with the overall strategies and the different technologies that are coming up. So we invest in, of course, a little bit of educational practices for ourselves to bring our own capabilities up.
And then, of course, as you said, personal development plays a big role in that too. And I would say individuals have the most authority over their own personal development as well to push forward in the sustainability space.
Absolutely. I always
you mentioned, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. I always say that change starts from the top, but also change starts from within. right? So if you want somebody else to change, you would have to invest that time for yourself. So when I came into this role, I came from strategy. I came from a background of strategy, transformations, and supply chain. While I had inklings of sustainability and I worked on different sustainability projects, I had to massively upskill my own understanding and knowledge through reading, through interviews, and through just getting into the role and learning on the job to build up that capability. And that has proven to be the best investment for understanding the whole gamut of the topics.
I think that's a kind of a good side question to ask as well. What do you think are the top skill sets needed for a CSO? For example, you mentioned strategy. I had a conversation the other day with the CSO head of a mining company who then is now the CSO of a fashion industry in terms of the skill sets. What do you think those skill sets are that really defines leaders in that space? Because it's always evolving, essentially, in that role.
Absolutely. Um, I think, like any senior business leader, right? First of all, you have to be a strategic business leader, most of all, to understand how sustainability would fall in ensuring that your business has longevity. So that's number one. Second is, I also think you need to bring around a lot of passion, and passion without substance does not go anywhere. So understand having a passion for those topics, at the same time, understanding how you can drive that change through the technical expertise is important. And third is this whole transformational experience. Many of our businesses today are not thinking of sustainability as, they need to step change from where they are. And I've found that if you have a transformational experience in the past, that often helps in bringing that thinking along on what is it that you would need to step change your capabilities, ways of operating, how do you embed new ways of working in this new step up while bringing along that entire organization. So I think that's one of the major skill sets, I would say. So a little bit of technical, a lot of transformation, but of course, always strategic thinking.
And then I just wanted to bring it back as well to future sustainability leaders. PEP positive, of course, is sustainability and human capital centric. What are your recommendations in terms of developing that talent for the future? It's a conversation that we have across the segment where sustainability talent is actually becoming a concern, right? How do you cultivate it? How do you upskill once they go into an organization internally and push things forward? So what is your recommendations in that aspect to cultivate green talent?
That's a fabulous question, and we've been toying around with these thoughts ourselves within PepsiCo. I fundamentally see it as two different roles within this organization. One is a core expert type of a role, a person who brings along some educational experience in sustainability, grows within the ranks of that organization, builds their own expertise, and becomes the go-to center of excellence kind of a person for the entire organization. That's that's one path or a career path that we would like to develop. However, there's another career path that I would highly encourage, and this would be somebody like a generalist, and that person would come either from a marketing organization or somebody from supply chain or from procurement or from R&D for that matter. And that person would then come into the sustainability organization for about a couple of years, understand and build their own critical experience, bring their knowledge from previous and past experiences, and add to the function while going back in the future back to their original career paths. But the interesting dichotomy that then this brings to the sustainability function becomes very rich because of the experiences that people can bring from outside, can learn from sustainability, and can move on in their career. So that's how we at PepsiCo have thought through of our sustainability organization going forward.
It's kind of creating, I imagine, a big toolbox with many different diverse tools that can be applied in a sense. And then sometimes we have conversation where, oh, I might not have that sustainability certification or degree, but you can still make an impact, I imagine, in that process and in that team across different functions. Where does external engagement come into play to developing that talent? So future, leaders of sustainability, how do you see the role as industry and academia creating that pathway moving forward in the future?
I think that is a critical point that you bring up, especially because many a times in sustainability, the challenges ahead of us are quite large. And it's very easy to get bogged down or overwhelmed with, say, carbon capture and all the work that we have ahead of us. While we do that, we have to remember we're not in this journey alone. And hence, partnership becomes critical. I always think of this in terms of a pre-competitive and a pre-competitive kind of landscape and how we could work together with other FMCGs. So, for example, in the US and globally, we work very closely with Unilever and Nestle on some of our agro practices for regenerative agriculture. And I think that is fantastic because we're bringing the best thinking to problems that all of us are facing. And similarly, as we think through the entire partnership landscape, we have to remember that we are not in this alone. And there are several organizations that can band together to create this change moving forward. For example, we work along the Alliance to End Plastic Waste with other FMCG companies to form policies and support the government on creating extended producer responsibility policies to ensure that plastic is collected and recycled, right? So I think there are several ways in which we as PepsiCo work with partners, and I absolutely think that's a critical skill going forward for a talent to develop in sustainability, to have that outward focus more than an inward focus.
And where do you see the state of sustainability, let's say, curriculum? Are you seeing enough industry engagement in that aspect, or do you think there needs to be more practical balance of learning versus theoretical? Because it seems like, as you said, it's always evolving, can be very specific to very broad. Where do you see that current space, and how do you think that that can be pushed forward?
That is the need of the hour. What I see today is a lot of curriculum which is very academically focused, but when it comes to practical challenges in areas that we work in, I honestly find it as a huge talent gap. And what might be helpful is actually very small, tailored, curated courses for individuals to actually pick up that knowledge and apply it in their day-to-day work, rather than going for university for a particular certification. And I think that's where companies such as the evolving educational companies can come in handy to form partnerships with sustainability organizations such as ours to have curated courses. For example, I gave you a landscape of all the 5, 6 different pillars that PepsiCo is a part of. The person that works on water needn't be fully adept in understanding plastics recyclability. They need to understand at a broader overview, but they really need to understand the water saving practices and best practices across the world and technologies that will offer that. And hence, I would much rather have deep focused technical knowledge and short courses with application oriented education for those kind of experts than a university certification for 3 months or 6 months.
And I just wanted to kind of follow up and broaden that back out again. Of course, PEP positive, sustainability, human capital, but inevitably it's people, planet, and profit. And so, how do you see that intertwining, and really communicating the benefits and value of sustainability, across those functions to establish buy-in in that space?
So fundamentally, it's extremely simple. If there is no planet, if there are no people in the future, there is no business, and hence there is no profit, right? And in many, many
Touche.
parts, we laugh, but in many parts of the world, that is a reality. For example, last year in Pakistan, while the country was flooded in half of Pakistan's geography, the other half was facing tremendous water-related challenges, right? So there's a dichotomy. This June and July have been the hottest summers that I think Europe has ever witnessed. And it's only a matter of time where if we don't take care of the planet, it's going to quickly tumble down into our profits. So I think the time is gone to help people understand the importance of it. I think everybody understands the need of the hour. What is now now the rubber is hitting the road. If we don't make enough investments in the energy transition, in securing the future through the right capex investments, we're not going to have, so the choices that we make today are going to affect years of business from now on and generations from now on. So we need to make those choices today. For example, I'll give you a very quick examples on investing in biomass or renewable energy. In India, if you look today at PepsiCo's operations, if you look at our company-owned operations, India is a beacon for making biogas and biomass energy. So 70 to 80% of PepsiCo India's energy comes from renewable sources, and that's biomass and biogas plants at our company factories, right? So, but if those decisions were not made 3, 4, 5, 8 years ago, when we actually started those factories, we wouldn't be in a place today, right? So we have to start by taking care of the planet and our people, which would then reflect in the better future for the business for tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm actually in Southern California at the moment, where I'm from originally. I'm based in Dubai, but of course, we just had our first tropical storm in over a century, and you can already see, the costs that add up after a while, and of course, the benefit of investing in new technology that can help prevent things in the future. But I wanted to also kind of take that into consideration. You mentioned you've had experience in LA, I believe, in California, across the US and globally, and of course in the region. What do you see as kind of the biggest difference with the role of CSO in the Middle East versus other regions around the world?
I think there's a fundamentally different role that a CSO plays in this part of the world. And I think that relates to driving advocacy at a different level. Our governments actually in this part of the world need a lot of support from the corporates and private institutions to actually help define and develop policies, of course, borrowing from some of the nations which have done this many years before, but to actively advocate towards, say, for example, the energy transition, toward other, policies which take care of the planet. And I think that is a fundamentally different role that I believe a CSO in this part of the world plays than, say, somebody in the US or Europe.
I think 20, 25 minutes goes by pretty quick, but I just wanted to wrap up with one final question. We've COP28 coming up. It's the global stock take. What are you looking for in terms of positive outcomes from that? And of course, also considering this is just one blip in a massive journey that we have. But what is your takes on that major moment in time coming up?
Look, being based in Dubai, I'm extremely excited and optimistic for what can come out of this COP. We have seen this UAE being a small but a mighty nation when it comes to making change and driving strides. We've seen that in the solar energy agreements that have come up recently. I'm extremely hopeful with this presidency, we will see some action in the right direction, especially towards energy transition and policies and true impact on making commitments and hard goals and investments around the energy transition towards renewable energies. So I think that's my hope, and I hope our Dubai COP really delivers and goes beyond on that.
Yeah, it's moving from blueprints and visions to that implementation phase, which I think is a big centric focus of this COP28 that's coming up. But I just wanted to thank you, Manali, our special guest speaker today. For all those listening and watching, please feel free to follow her on social media, of course, PepsiCo, as well as Pep Positive 2, where they're making great strides in that space. And of course, Gulf Intelligence, where we'll be publishing this podcast and the content from it. But thank you very much, Manali. We appreciate your time and your insights as well.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thanks a lot.